Hey everyone and welcome back. Now today I wanted to talk about Jasmy because we've seen a lot of really interesting price action happening recently, and also I want to take a closer look at kind of what we could see potentially in the short, medium, and long term, both with concerning Jasmy specifically, but also in kind of the wider altcoin market. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So starting out, what we can see is this is like kind of a textbook like descending wedge breakout that we've seen here, right? Like obviously we saw the consolidation happening basically ever since the beginning of July. We consolidated down into a pretty dense point, kind of right at the point of this wedge. We popped out, came back and kind of tested, we could see kind of we hit that point of resistance right here. We kind of came back right along the top side of this trend line, bounced off of it, and then we, broke through this level of resistance, settled on it for some support, came up, same thing, broke through this level of resistance, and now potentially we might keep running. We may come back to settle on it, but ultimately, this is a textbook wedge breakout, right? Things are looking really, really good for Jasmy so far. We are seeing that there's a little bit of resistance up at this point that we can see. This kind of overall area is kind of just a general liquidity zone, so we could potentially see price struggle within this area before we continue to move up. But I mean, kind of the next major point would be up here at 3.2 cents. After that, we're looking at about 4.1 cents. And then after that, we're probably looking at the 6 cent range. But overall, I mean, things are looking good. One thing that we are seeing, these are daily candles. We can see that we have just recently kind of broken into the overbought territory. So we could potentially see a little bit of a pullback here. We settle on this support, consolidate in this area before we then continue a move up. So I think that to me kind of looks like best case scenario kind of in the near term. But overall, we have just barely broken into kind of the overbought territory. So it is very possible that we continue running potentially before we start to come back down. So, it's hard to say. I do think we will start to see kind of some consolidation on this price level, but obviously, nothing is guaranteed. So, something just to keep in mind. The next thing I want to check out is kind of short, medium, and long term. What could this look like both for Jasmy as well as the wider crypto market? So looking at this next set of data, I want to show you the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. Now, the reason that we're using Bitcoin instead of Jasmy is because, Bitcoin obviously has a ton more volume and liquidity in it, and Bitcoin's kind of what dictates the market, I would say, just generally speaking. And so I use Bitcoin even though we are talking about Jasmy, just because I do think it kind of provides the best indication. Now, what we can see here on the liquidation map is we've got two pretty decent chunks of liquidity, both on the short and long side. We can see we are slightly favored towards liquidating longs, which would indicate a move to the downside. But it's not super lopsided. So I'm not saying that this is necessarily a guarantee that something like this would happen. But we are definitely we are favoring towards, moving to the downside. Now, again, what we've seen kind of looking at this on, on the liquidation map, we've seen this I've talked about this on my channel recently. The liquidation map is very, very accurate in terms of predicting moves. What it's not great at doing is predicting when. Right. And so, when we see a possible move to the downside is really hard to say. The other thing we want to look at here is looking at kind of multiple points of confluence. So we can see obviously on the 7-day chart, it's massively, massively skewed towards liquidating longs, which would mean moving to the downside. And then on the 30-day, we're going to see something similar as well, even more skewed, $10 billion at this point liquidated if we start to move to the downside. So I do think that a pullback, in my opinion, is probably somewhat imminent. We have started to kind of see a little bit of up only for the past couple of weeks. Things are getting, I wouldn't say necessarily euphoric, but people are definitely getting excited. People are getting, very maybe a little bit big for their britches, getting super, super interested in basically only taking leveraged longs. And usually, if history is to be any guide, at least from what it seems to me, obviously, these exchanges love to liquidate people. And so, I think a move to the downside is definitely probably expected. Again, when we don't know for sure. We are seeing confluence between all three time frames on this chart that we probably are going to be seeing a move to the downside. So something to consider. Medium term, what I wanted to look at is the altcoin season index. Now, the reason that we want to look at this is because, again, generally speaking, when it's Bitcoin season, that's usually when altcoins have been, kind of beat down the hardest. And so what we can see here, when we were the furthest into Bitcoin season, this was the 30th of July, and this is kind of right when there was that massive crash happening. And obviously people, all of their altcoin bags were just getting absolutely wrecked. And if we look back to where we were in altcoin season, we could see this was early January. And now this was not like peak euphoria, I would say. I think that was kind of mid-March area. But this is when obviously altcoins were performing a lot better comparative to Bitcoin. And so this is usually a good guide of like when altcoins may be overvalued comparatively to Bitcoin. And what we can see now is, we aren't to the midway point yet. We are still favored in Bitcoin season, but we aren't actually in Bitcoin season, right? But we are kind of favored on that edge of the map. So what this means to me right now, at least, is altcoins aren't necessarily like overvalued. It's not super frothy. There's still potentially a long way up for us to go. And the longer and the more steady the climb is without getting super euphoric and seeing some massive price spike, obviously the more stable that this is going to be and kind of allows to, maybe juice some more gains potentially. And so kind of from the medium term, it does not look like we're at a point where maybe it would be worthwhile looking to sell. We are kind of at the point right now where, potentially we can still be looking to accumulate because we haven't hit that altcoin season yet. Looking at long term, this is kind of, I want to do this a little bit of a different way. And how I wanted to look at this is through a couple different things. So the first thing I wanted to look at is a couple different things. So the first thing is we're going to go and we're going to look at how far we've pulled back. And this is the total market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. So basically all of the other altcoins. And what we can see is we have actually pulled back about 43% from the all-time high. So we still essentially have quite a ways, almost a 2x to recover until we have hit previous all-time highs in the altcoin market cap. Now, what I want to take a look at also is from the 2017 bull market to the 2021 bull market, what did we see in terms of gains? And it looks like we saw about 216%. So if we were to go and map this, now we're going to have to kind of move this a little bit. But if we were to go and map this, again, we got to go from all-time high to new all-time high. We're going to have to zoom this out a decent bit. So if we were to go from all-time high to new all-time high and to about 216%, which is what we were seeing on that chart, we're seeing that we would have to get to almost a $3.6 trillion market cap. Again, this is total. We're sitting about 600 right now. So obviously that is a total 6x in the altcoin market cap, which I don't know about you. I would not complain too much about that, right? So this is something where, if we look at it kind of in the short term, obviously we're all getting excited. We're all happy. But this is what we've seen so far. Just these little couple wicks, because we have this on the weekly. So these are the only couple wicks that we've seen. If we were to see a bull run in the same magnitude as what we saw last time, this is what remains, right? So hopefully that's something just to kind of keep things in perspective for you. I mean, obviously the gains that we're seeing right now are exciting. They are fun. It's great to see and all that type of stuff, but just kind of keep your eye on the bigger picture and understand that, we potentially still have a really, really long way to go. And if this bull run kind of shapes out like, many of us think it possibly could, it's only just getting started. So, again, not financial advice. You have to make your own decisions and kind of figure out what's best for you. Obviously, again, we are talking about the total crypto market cap. And so, some coins have already 100x. Some coins may continue to 1000x, right? So, I mean, there's still a lot of like ways to play this market. But overall, I just want to show you that, we're still very, very early on. Retail isn't back. A lot of the like major bullish catalysts for this upcoming run have started to take place, but they haven't necessarily played out yet. And so there's a lot still essentially coming that is still coming to pass. And so that's just something I want to remind us all of. If you did enjoy the video, please do give us a like and subscribe. It really does help us out. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, anything like that, also please do leave those in the comment section below. We do read and respond to as many comments as possible, and I do really enjoy reading all of your guys' takes and opinions and thoughts on the market. So if you did want to leave any feedback, I would really appreciate that. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.